sorry, but I don't speak Spanish anymore. So. Okay, so we'll talk about the multiple facets of business process engineering. I don't know if in your studies you have some courses in, not in this level, in the master level, engineering. So yesterday, Colette Roland explained to us, talked to us about the evolution of information systems and information and communication technologies, and about the new role of information systems in the dynamic environment, the way that information and communication technologies may be used in favor of business evolution, and now I will talk about business modeling, not from the intentional point of view, but from the organization. But I will conclude my talk saying that the organizational point of view should be completed by the intentional point of view, and the two points of views are complementary. So the business modeling and enterprise.
Quizás es más fácil venirse más acá. Non mais, je fais que tout le monde descend un peu. Allez, c'est ça le bébé.
So the enterprise modeling and the business process modeling can help understanding of current business situation and establishing a vision of the future of the organization in order to create the information systems which will fit with the needs of the organization. So in this enterprise modeling and business modeling, we will take into account the global enterprise knowledge, the information system, and the information technology point of view. And we need to have a balance between social and technical aspects of the organization. So since 20 years, companies are facing pressures to improve their competitiveness in order to better satisfy customer requirements, to improve their internal processes, to modify the range of products and services they offer to their customers. And information technologies and information systems became an integrated part, more and more an integrated part of the organizations. At the same time, the organizations experienced the effects of business integration due to the evolution of information and communication technologies, like in the domains of electronic business, deregulation, mergers and acquisitions, business process automation, and the globalization of the economy and of the business. They need also to improve their inter-organization business processes. In this environment, information and communication technologies are positioned as a strategic resource. A study done in the United States showed that the IT capital investment expanded from 19% of all business investment to 35% from 90 to 2003. IT has become the largest component of capital investment for firms in the United States and in many industrialized societies. In this new environment, organizations need to integrate process islands at the high level to collaboratively provide business solutions that each individual application, each individual software application supporting a given business function is unable to provide. During the early 90s, workflow technologies were the only ones to offer this transversal integration capacity to enterprise applications. Nevertheless, the formalism developed for workflow application specifications were and still largely almost systematically activity-oriented. The resulting business process definitions have the advantage to be easily transformable to executable code, but the disadvantage of being prescriptive and rigid. In this new changing business environment, the key word is integration since more than 20 years. In the beginning, we started by the integration of data among several enterprise services, integration of data using database management systems, distributed database management systems. Then in the early 90s, we came into the application integration with enterprise resource planning systems, workflow management systems, enterprise application integration systems, and finally, in the late 90s, we began to talk about the business process integration around the notion of business process management. Business process management is not about management from my point of view. This is about business process engineering, and this is about the best way of creating software systems for supporting enterprise business processes. In this continuous economical and technological evolutions, enterprises are forced to adapt frequently their way of working. This means that the computer systems, the software applications, should be adapted to changing business practices and needs. The capacity of a quick reaction is often due to the ability of handling the support systems in favor of business evolution requirements. This means that today, to integrate business processes is not sufficient anymore. The architecture of this integration of business processes should also be flexible. So we need for flexible and adaptive business processes whose evolution can evolve according to situations that cannot always be prescribed in advance, and according to business changes which can be organizational, operational, strategical, managerial, or IT oriented. So we need to have the flexibility for business processes and the supporting information systems. Flexibility means fast reactivity, the capacity to have a fast reactivity to internal and external changes. The flexibility has been defined by Regev and Wegman as the ability to yield to change without disappearing. It reflects the easiness to make evolve business process models in the sense of business process schemas as a database schema. So these are business process models which are specific to applicate enterprise, to a given enterprise. And flexibility is also reflected by the ability to that the support systems have to take into account business changes. So in these changing business process environments, enterprise need also to deal with inter-organizational business processes. In fact, sometimes several business partners are involved in a global business process, which is inter-organizational. The main motivation is the globalization of the economy. So enterprises are networked today. So we can talk about the supply chain management, not intra-enterprise, but also inter-enterprise. And there is a high need of cooperation. So in this way, the firm is a part of the value chain of a given domain. And we have also to think about business processes which are not executed inside a given enterprise, but among several enterprises. So in this situation, the need for flexibility becomes even more important, because if a given enterprise changes, he should respect some kind of contract with the other enterprise with which they are in business. So they cannot change in a very anarchical way. They have to respect some contracts between business processes. So since early 90s, in these changing environments, the alignment with the coherence between enterprise needs and the capabilities of information systems become more and more important. There are a lot of frameworks for business information system alignment. One of them, one of the oldest ones, is the strategic alignment method, which has been developed by Henderson and Matt in MIT. So in this model, the authors talk about the strategic alignment between objectives of the business and business processes, and the IT strategy, and the information system, and the IT infrastructure. And we have also, of course, to deal with the coherence, with the functional integration, as they call, between business processes and information systems, technical information systems, which are implemented. So actual work, so since more than 10 years, more or less, on information system engineering and business information system alignment, aim to establish a formal bridge between the analysis, the understanding, the description of a given organization, and the specification of the information system which would support the targeted business. So, yesterday Colette Roland talked to us about goal models, and today I will talk about business process models and actor role models. So in this environment, we can talk about creating and maintaining the fit between business needs, business requirements, and information systems capabilities to support these business requirements. So we can talk about create and maintaining the fit, and this is one of the main purposes, aims of the International Working Conference called BPMDS. If you wish, you can visit this website and to have some links to the papers about this subject. So when we talk about business information system alignment, there are several enterprise architecture frameworks in the literature. One of them is EKDCMM, that you did know so well, which tries to analyze, which proposes a framework to analyze the enterprise, a given enterprise, from three purposes: from the point of view of enterprise objectives, from the point of view of enterprise business processes, and from the point of view of information systems. We have several other frameworks. This one is from the French school. So the first level is about business processes. The second level is about information system functionalities and services. The third level is about application infrastructure. And the fourth level is about technical infrastructure. So we find again here the business process level. You maybe know the work of Papazoglou, Integrated Enterprise Framework, which offers 5 layers of representation for a given enterprise. So the first level is again business goals. The 2 next levels is again business process layer and the execution of the business processes, which is the workflow layer. And then we have the business object layer and enterprise information system layer. And if you know the results of business engineering, which is a software series, a big software suite, I don't know if you have it, which is sold by IDS Share, the company IDS Share. So this is a framework for managing business processes from organizational engineering to real-world IT implementation. And again, we have the process engineering, process planning, and workflow control levels. They don't have, in an explicit way, the goal level, so you can tell that this is missing. In all these enterprise frameworks, we can find a socio-technical perspective on information systems engineering. In this socio-technical perspective, the performance of a system is optimized when both the technology and the organization mutually adjust to one another until a satisfactory fit is obtained. So this means that in the beginning we can start by a technological alternative and a business alternative. People are not used to talk together. There may be several these different point of views. And in a participative design process, as we heard yesterday, they will, using negotiations, prioritizations, learning the vocabulary used by the other people, they will make some design choices and arrive to a final design of technology and the final design of organization which will fit in a way that people will be happy by the computer system, computer application which will provide it to them. So in these contemporary approaches to information systems, business process modeling became an important aspect. And business process modeling requires concepts to design business processes and their supporting information systems, and also to execute business processes, and also concepts to support the co-evolution of business processes and supporting information systems. The purpose is to facilitate the business information system alignment and the co-evolution. I think as future engineers, you know that using models and artifacts allows a more coherent and complete description of a given system, and an organization is also a system. These models allow to improve the knowledge about the enterprise, to reason on alternative solutions and also diverging points of view, and finally to reach an agreement. These models prove their efficiency as well as for improving communication than making easier the organizational work. But the business process models which are available in the literature and in the commercial products are mainly based in an activity-oriented representation and in the detailed view of the enterprise. And yesterday, Colette Collin told to us that he has 1 meter cube of papers in the PPC company in Greece, electricity supply company, when represented all business processes, about 200. And it was not all business processes, it was only business processes which are related to the distribution. We do not have any view on generation and transmission of electricity. So the amount of detail to be handled is difficult to master. But this exercise was useful for us for understanding the company. So it means, from my point of view, that you have some situations where the detailed point of view is required. But when we arrived with this understanding of the company, or at least of the part that we studied in the company, to this understanding, this knowledge sharing, we realized that we cannot represent the change at this level of details. So this means that the models that we used was good for understanding, but they were not good enough for reasoning on the change. So this means that we have to use several meta-models, several formalisms, according to the purpose of the model. So in this situation, the objective-oriented representation, the intention-oriented representation, the goal-oriented representation seems more adequate, more appropriate in order to reason about change before going again into the details of the business processes for the future situation. So the importance of establishing and preserving the best fit between organization needs, which are represented in the whys and in the what of the modeling, and the system functionalities, is today recognized. In several enterprise modeling frameworks that you may find in the literature, you have a collection of conceptual modeling techniques for describing different facets of the organizational domain. I show you 4 enterprise architecture frameworks, and in one you have 3 straits, in other 5, in 2 others 4 straits. So this means that the layers may be of a different number, but these 3 facets, these 3 dimensions, seems to us very important. So the first one is the intention purpose, the teleological the purpose view. What is the purpose of the system? What is the purpose of the organization? The second one is the organizational dimension, including representation of business processes in the macro, but also in the micro level, representation of actors, the roles, the flow of information among activities, among actors, whatever. And finally, the operational considerations for defining the technical information system models. Again, in the literature, we can find a very rough classification of business processes in 2 classes. The first one can be called well-defined business processes. The second one can be called ill-defined business processes. More and more in the literature, you can find the naming of knowledge-intensive business processes. Well-defined business processes are often repetitive processes. They have important coordination and automation needs. And this means that the activities, the execution of the activities should be controlled, coordinated with respect to the process model, to the business process model. On the contrary, ill-defined or knowledge-intensive business processes may not or should not be defined in terms of coordination, because we cannot predefine in advance the kind of flow that we should have between activities. And here, the thing which is most important in terms of modeling, but also in terms of executing, is information and knowledge sharing between the actors which are involved in the business process. And we can observe that for many organizations, ill-defined and well-defined business processes coexist and must be handled in the global business model. So this is what I can call the structural nature of business processes, well-defined or ill-defined, this means knowledge-intensive. In the early 90s, as I said, the workflow management systems was the first and only technologies which were able to integrate these activities, business activities, into a business process model. In this environment, a process definition is the representation of what should happen in a business process in terms of activities which should be realized by actors in a very imperative way of describing. This is a little bit the kind of opposition, the opposition that I'm making here between well-defined and ill-defined business processes is a kind of opposition that we can make between imperative programming language and declarative programming language. In an imperative programming, using an imperative programming language, you should define the program as a sequence of actions or groups. Or in a declarative language, like Prolog or like whatever it is, you define local histories, local realities, and you have a kind of engine which is able to orchestrate several rules, several programming rules, which are written in terms of if, then, else, else, if condition, then action. In the middle of 90s, Alonso and Dallier categorized the workflow applications into 4 classes. Depending on the nature of the processes they can support, this application can support, and the value these business processes produce for the enterprise. So the first one is production workflows. which are repetitive and predictable business processes. These are core processes of the company in the sense of porter valuation. I don't know if they may know. They incorporate accesses to various information systems, various computer systems, and this is the closest category to the commercial workflow management solutions. The administrative workflows have also a repetitive structure, but these are not the core processes of the company, these are administrative processes. The other workflows have no predefined structure. The communication mechanism, they need communication mechanism to route case, this means an instance of the process, case data between workers of the process. Often they are created to deal with exceptions or in the situation where there is no set pattern for moving information among people. And the coordination of activities is totally controlled by human participants. And the collaborative workflow include iterative tasks over the same step or between various actors until an agreement has been met. But there is no possible way to predefine the steps to follow. The coordination is also mainly done by human participants. This is a very sharp way of seeing the workflows and today business processes. But the thing that I don't like too much in this categorization is that the authors mix the structural nature and the business nature, the organizational nature of the things, which are orthogonal, and I cannot find the Cartesian product in this definition. This means that they are dealing with some of them and not all of them. But nevertheless, this is a known categorization. There is another categorization, it's in French, but anyway you cannot read it, it's too small, so it's not important. But this is the representation which is important, the way of drawing. So this is the organizational nature of the business processes, which corresponds to the core processes. This is in the university is teaching, it's creating new programs, things like that. In the hospital is to providing treatments to the patients and so on. So it is in the middle. So this is the realization processes, this is the main business processes, and this corresponds to the raison d'être of the company, as she said yesterday. Here we have the support processes. In any company, in the hospital, but also in the university, but also in an oil production company, we will find the support processes which will often wear the same wordings. It will be human resource management, it will be the financial management, whatever things like that. So this is not related to the main reason of being of the company, but these are very important processes also for the company. And on the top level, we have the control or management processes, which can work about, for instance, creating a new market for the company, finding new products, investigating for new customers, and also piloting, governing the other kind of processes. These are more called management processes. Nevertheless, all those processes needs for modeling, and all those processes needs for IT support. In the beginning of the computer science, we started by these applications, these domains in the company. We started with financial aspects, human resource aspects, and so on. Then afterwards, we went into selling products, things like that, which can be in this level of the company. And today, more and more, because the maturity of using IT is arrived to a given level, companies are asking for having some support for those processes which are for management processes. I don't know if you can find in French we call it strategic processes. Strategic, but they can be also tactical processes. When they are controlling the core business processes, they can be tactical processes, but they can be also strategic processes. These are creating a new market, for instance. This is not a thing which is recurrent. You are not doing it every day, but you can do it in a recurrent way, maybe every year, every 2 years, or whatever. But the frequency is less important. And these processes also need IT support that we should provide to them. Okay, so today the needs for flexibility. When we have a look on the business processes, and to the first technology for dealing business processes, which are workflow management systems, there is a standardization organization which is called Workflow Management Coalition, which provided this kind of pictures, which are accepted and implemented in every commercial workflow system. So we can talk about the flexibility during the build time, during the modeling time, or during the run time, during the execution. So we have first to represent the business processes in a process definition which can be executed using a workflow management system. This means a workflow management system is a scheduler, as in a computer is a computer, it's a scheduler. So it knows to work with activity-oriented business process or any process representations. The workflow management service will execute this process definition and will send the work to do to several actors and sending them the right applications to do that. The most offers in the literature, even in the research literature, are about a posteriori flexibility. This means that we have a process definition which is activity-oriented. This means that the process is represented as a set of activities, as in an imperative programming language. And during the execution, something is wrong, and the system should find a solution in order to make the process continue. I will come back after to a priori flexibility. On the contrary, in the a priori flexibility, which is in the build time, we will not use a complete fixed activity-oriented representation, but we will make use of techniques which are also known in programming, which are like, for instance, late binding and late modeling. In late binding, the process modeling environment will allow that process definition elements, the tasks, for instance, are considered as objects which behavior is defined during the process execution. So everything is not defined necessarily in advance. For instance, the association of activities to the most adequate implementation during the execution, an actor will have the choice among 3, 4, 5 ways of doing the activity. And all of them are present. He will just choose the way of doing the activities. The selection of the resource, of the human resource, which better satisfies a given criteria, or selection of the best suitable actor for carrying out an activity according to some constraints. In the late modeling, it is often more open. Some elements of the process definition are left open to innovation and creativity of the actors of the business processes, especially in the situations where specifications cannot be well identified during the build time. For instance, some activities are declared as mandatory, but some others are omitted may be omitted during the execution. Or activities are specified and participants have the freedom of selecting the most appropriate precedence relationship between activities during the execution. And there is another class of solution, which is the case handling, which is developed by a Dutch team on the rest. Here, data and processes are not separated as in traditional workflow management systems. Case handling focuses on what can be made rather than on what should be made. This solution leaves freedom to the participants of a process instance in a controlled way. The next activity to be carried out is defined by the state of the process instance rather than by a predefined control flow. So this is more a product-oriented way of representing, but I will introduce what is the product-oriented and activity-oriented representation a little bit later. Probably I should do it in the opposite way, but whatever. At what time is started? So I will talk a little bit about the EKE solution that we developed in this European project. And I will talk about the business process representation formalisms that we used in this environment, which are role activity models, actor role models, and business objects models. So in this framework, enterprise knowledge development change management method framework, we have the 3 dimensions or 3 layers of representation: objectives, processes, and information systems. At the layer of business objectives, we have some goal models that I will show very quickly in a few minutes, but yesterday Colette talked to us about goal hierarchies that we created because business process representation was too detailed and we was not able to handle them for the change proposal. And at the layer of business processes, we have four perspectives to represent business processes. This is what is called processes here. This is a bad way of naming, but this would like to show that in the literature, when we are talking about business processes, we are talking about this way of representing, which is called activity models, as you can find in UML, as you can find in BPMN, business process management notation. So this is an activity-driven representation of business processes. This is the more usual, but this is not necessarily more powerful. We have some actor role models, rule models, we are not using them, and object models. When we use business process modeling, we may have various purposes for making this. Why you are making? You need to model, to represent business processes. What is the aim, target, the purpose? You can have several targets. When you are an engineer, when you should make a bridge, you should have some models. You should have some models that even if you should simulate, for instance, in order to see if the bridge will be enough strong to put all cars on the bridge. So, modeling is a way of thinking about the system, whatever the system can be, computer system, a bridge, an organization, but before the system exists. So we are making a kind of projection on the future. These models will allow us to have a vision of the future in order to imagine and to create and to implement the system that we would like to implement. So among the representation proposed with business process proposals, we can have this first one, which is creating a new system, but we can also the purpose of understanding an existing system. When you have a software application, and you should make some evolution of this software application. And you don't have any documentation of this software application. What you can do? You are doing that you can go reverse design, reverse engineering, whatever. So we use some models, some formalism in order to represent the application which is in place, which is executed, but that we cannot change it if we cannot understand how it works exactly. So this can be used for understanding an existing system. In EKD-CMM, we in fact we modeled around 200 business processes, and then we realized that it is too detailed for our purpose of modeling, because our purpose of modeling in this European project was the change of the company. And in order to understand the company, the level of details and the models we used were good, probably or appropriate, but in order to think about the change, this level of modeling was not appropriate. So we changed the focus of the modeling, and we used goal models to describe all these alternative scenarios for changing the organization. And we proposed a way of representing the change process in a given company, not as only one scenario which should be implemented, but as a set of change scenario, alternative change scenario, it should be thought enough earlier in order to make some negotiation, for instance, among partners, and in order to make a good choice for implementing afterwards the change. So this means that we proposed also, so this is the framework that Colette presented to us yesterday, between the as-is model and to-be model, we explicitly added the change process model, which allows to represent the alternatives for change. And then the change process consists to execute the model which will be the scenario which will be chosen, in fact, with the business people and IT people. The purposes of modeling can be business process improvement, so understanding the existing business processes in order to propose some improvements using some key process indicators, things like that. This can be business process reengineering. This can be quality management, your environment, your partners, proposes to your company to satisfy some quality management standards. And so we first represent your business process models and try to make the fit between the quality management representations and your company process representation. This is another purpose of process management. This can be also knowledge management, because all these models we can hope that they will be stored in a repository, business process repository, in order to continue in the next years to use them as the as-is business processes and as-is models. And the next time we start with something which is existing, because generally when we start, we don't have any enterprise architecture model, we don't have any documentation. But when we started, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 2 years, what was to be 2 years before, we become the as-is, and now we have some representation of the existing processes, and this can be used as an organizational learning environment. Capitalization of knowledge. So in the very usual representation of business processes, we represent the business process in columns or in lines, whatever. In UML you have columns, in PML you have in lines. The lines or the columns represent the roles of the actors of the company which will be involved in this business process. And the role activity model will allow us to analyze business processes in terms of actors which are realizing activities in a given order according to some conditions and with some data flow between the activities. So the first thing that we can consider here is that this way of modeling is okay for well-defined business processes. For ill-defined and knowledge-intensive processes, we cannot imagine that we will be able to represent everything in an imperative way as a sequence of activities. We should find another way of representing. But whatever, for some kind of business processes, maybe a lot of business processes where we have some standardization requirements, for instance, in the company, this model can be incompatible. So in this representation, in this kind of representation, a business process is seen as a collection of activities that consumes inputs and produces outputs in terms of information or material, products or services, is controlled by a set of rules indicating how to process the inputs to produce the output. So you will write a kind of program, and this is a program, this is an imperative program where you will write this person does that, afterwards there is a condition, according to the condition, yes or not, actor 1 or actor 2 will make other activities, so everything is predefined. Nevertheless, this process has a goal. This is what the business is trying to achieve by implementing this business process. This process is expected to consume a finite amount of resources and time. This process is the manifestation of what actors to do in order to achieve the goals. Actors interact and collaborate around the activities. This is the kind of representation that you can find in a role activity models, in a BPMN representation, in a UML representation. This is the kind of activity model that we can have for representing a computer system. Except that in a computer system, the columns will be objects, and here these are the actors. So the details is not important. So okay, there are some questions. So I would like to propose you a small exercise that I will give you immediately the solution. And I would like that we exchange around this. We are in an organization which will make some hotel booking for customers, which will ask a booking, giving some information, name, address, telephone number, and whatever, and which will also present some requirements for the kind of room they wish to book. 4-star, 3-star hotel in this station or in this station for going to ski, for instance, in French Alpes region. And if the request can be satisfied, we will provide the booking to this person. And if the request cannot be satisfied, the business people told to us to put it in the waiting list. And somebody tells also in the room during the discussion that a reservation can be cancelled by a customer at least 2 weeks before the beginning of the period which is booked. So I suggest you that we think together very shortly about this business process, thinking that in the company there will be 4 different roles, 4 different actors with 4 different roles in order to deal with this request of the reservation requester, which is the customer. So I imagine that in the company, I will have one actor which will receive the request and which will think about its receivability. We should work on it or not. Another actor which is supposed to find the availability, a room or some rooms available. Another actor which will be in charge of making the reservation and updating the planning of the rooms, and a request mediator that will be in charge of mediating of the situation if the reservation cannot be satisfied, because the aim is to keep the customer. And so let's suppose that there are several business people and one analyst around the table, and this is this model which arrives on the page. So the reservation requester, the customer will present the request, which can be considered as valid or not by the request receiver. If it is not valid, it is rejected. If it is valid, the request goes to the back office of the company. Somebody will find the availability, rooms available. If there are rooms available, the reservation making will make the reservation, book the room, change the planning and whatever, and inform the customer that the reservation is confirmed. And if there is no places, there is no availabilities, the application will go to the request mediator in order to mediate.
What's the meaning of the green dot?
Sorry?
The meaning of the green dot is
The green dots, this is the beginning and the end of the columns. This is the role activity diagram editor that we use for this. And the formalists have several troubles that I will not explain here, but this is not really a good representation, but nevertheless. Here, this is the beginning and ending of each columns, and this one is a condition.
okay.
This is a condition. Request valid, yes or no. And here at the end, the mediation, I made a very simple choice. The mediation will be putting in the waiting list. But it can be another thing. It can be realizing that, seeing that the customer is a loyalty card, and propose to him the upper level, making upper level reservation for the same price, because there are some places better, so we prefer to use the room even cheaper than not to make the reservation. So you can find several ways of making this mediation. I suppose that this is only for putting in the waiting list in order, because probably, I hope, they know that it may be one day satisfied. Okay. So the question is this business process, according to the rules that I gave you by talking, is this process complete from your point of view? Is this process complete? And from my point of view, the process description is complete if in all cases the process achieves the goal which is assigned to the process. In each situation, it should be done also, because the goal involves also the non-accomplishment of the goal. Let's just say the optative representation. So there are some situations, it's normal that we will not provide a room to the customer, because the last time he came, he did not pay, or he made a lot of noise, or whatever. In this situation, it's normal. Okay? But in the situation that is a good customer, in every situation this is a good customer, is this process achieves the goal, this means produces a reservation.
It's a wrong question. It's a completely wrong question in the sense that you don't know the requirements. So if the requirement is to give an alternative choice, even in waiting list, it's okay. But I don't know the requirement. I'm not giving me the requirement. It can be that for this kind of hotel, making people in waiting in makes sense at all. So the problem is the problem of yesterday. You are asking us to judge model without knowing the right requirement for that model. So the discussion can go on and go on for years, almost, because we don't know exactly what we want. It can be that these people have no interest for waiting list, plenty of hotels for which the waiting list is a
Yes.
countermeasure.
Sure, but in this case they will say no. They will say no, so I don't agree with this.
You don't propose a waiting list at all, it's stupid. Present a waiting list to this people. It's wrong requirement. So you are looking for a solution without knowing the requirements of it. It's not good.
My requirement, okay. My
We don't know,
requirement
we
is-
don't have it. We don't have them. You don't have a staff to requirements. So we cannot judge. I'm sorry, but we cannot judge.
The requirement is filling the rooms and making the customer satisfied.
No, it's not the goal. It cannot be the goal. This is too general.
Well, the point is that we have different alternatives. And in my opinion, each alternative may become a requirement.
Yes.
It depends on the point of view. From the customer point of view, I mean, the requirement is to have a reservation finish, complete. But from the point of view of the manager, I mean, the hotel manager, having a waiting list is also an alternative. It's also an option. It's a
I
requirement.
mean, if you look to this ETAP or whatever new kind of hotel they have been developing everywhere near the airport, things like that, these people don't want at all waiting list.
In this
Because,
place you don't
Yeah,
yes, but means, you don't discuss at the moment you are modeling the process, you discuss before that. You must know what is the condition for which you need this process, you need the requirement. This is a discussion you are asking us to do, which is not the right level. It should be before that.
Yes, but I suppose that it has been done.
No, not
So the
because
aim of the hotel
if
is
it
that-
had done, we should have had a list of requirements. I am in this situation. Waiting list is useless because already these people have
I am in a situation
evaluation.
where waiting list is useful.
So why you
So
don't
imagine
follow
that
it?
it's useful
So
for
then,
Hotel manager.
No, it
Not
is
for
something.
the client.
It depends. When you are booking a flight, you are happy when they put you in a waiting list.
I'm not happy.
It depends. If they cannot give you a flight, you may be happy. You can accept to wait
That's correct.
in a given time.
it depends. The first system which has been proposing seats in airplane on the web. Well, these people decide about a strategy which was to not propose waiting list because they calculate the cost of managing waiting list, the probability to serve the customer positively, and they end up the conclusion that this was not good. So they decide about a binary system by which either you can be served immediately, so you have a booking which is matched in the request, or you don't. It was binary. No point in asking if you want to be on waiting list. You are the company. You have to decide what is the best for you. So it's not that level that you have to do this kind of system. No, it's not.
No,
This
this
is
is
the process.
Okay,
It's
but
also-
I am in a company. I will give you the requirement afterwards.
Yeah, but you are not
on-
done. Go.
No, I'm not done. I'm doing the mix, top down and bottom.
No,
Okay.
no.
So we are around the table. Okay, so this is this process which have a waiting list, okay, for the purpose that the company have, and we will see that it will also help the customers. But we will see just after.
I check the completeness only against requirement. This is the way any engineer will check the completeness. I have a set of requirements, is to have all the functionality which is
But suppose that you have a waiting list as a requirement.
Waiting list is a
so I can accept. But then she has to tell me why they accept the waiting list. I need this discussion about why
They
have
accept the
accepted.
waiting list because they accept to give to the customers the possibility to cancel.
This is a tautology.
This is a service that they propose to
Otherwise-
customers. Okay?
It's a tautology you don't transform. Because in that case, they will tell you there are many other alternatives. Why you don't propose something which is similar, not exactly the same, but equivalent. So you
But I said you, I just said you that it is a possibility and I choose the waiting
Yeah,
because
but
my
in
purpose, my pedagogical purpose is other people. I'd like to make them think about the product of this business process with respect to the goal of
Okay,
the
we were a little bit sleeping, so this is why I decided a little bit
Now, the
English.
point is that
I stopped
this
like
technical
not speak
option
anymore.
to model any situation and having that possibility only whatever situation you have to face. It's good for I mean, from the point of view of the model and from the point of view of the owner of the problem. So I guess that this is okay. I think.
This is okay, but is it complete? So the answer, my answer at least is it not complete? Because here I go out of the process with a waiting list. So the aim of the customer is not to be in a waiting list. This means that this is an intermediate situation. So the question, why here somebody in the room said that we will propose to the customer to be in a waiting list. In which situation you propose to your customer to be in a waiting list? Because you are in an environment in which you will propose to your customers to cancel their reservation if they wish. So this cancellation will enable you to satisfy a customer that 2 days ago you are not able to satisfy. Okay?
So it's not also correct, because no hotel will give to that system 100% of the resources. No hotel will do that. So it's not only because you have a cancellation policy that new availability will come up, it's only because the quota of rooms that is not given to the system is not occupied, and then you can stop. So you have a relationship between two rules which don't work. And from my point of view, the rule of cancelling, if I were in this company, this hotel owner saying you want to, because the top level objective is evidently to take the full capacity of this hotel. So you believe that the policy of waiting list can be a way to achieve this goal. That you have to verify first if it can be negative. And secondly, then in that case, cancelling is completely against their rule. These people are stupid. So the guy who asked the question yesterday, not there today, but it's not a situation where I mean this guy, you are stupid, but we believe this owner of the hotel are not knowing what is the strategy now to see the strategy. Because in that case, if they accept cancellation, it is evident they are giving money for the guy to pay.
What if you have a different goal and not having happy to help customer all the time?
Yeah, you cannot survive with that big. You cannot survive. No business will tell you this goal.
I know
it's
that,
only in
I know
academics that we are happy.
People
If
don't
the
know
students are happy, we are happy, but it's only in this.
Colette, I agree with you, but my aim is not here to represent the best IT solution for this. I'm not in the alignment purpose. I'm trying to show you an example of synchronization between two business processes, which are not necessarily creating and cancelling the same business objectives. It can be totally different things. But I'm trying to show you a situation where it should be a flow between the two business processes. And if this flow does not arrive in the right time, the complete system, organizational system will be broken.
Okay. I want to add something. This discussion is very important because it help us to conclude that requirement engineering is very important.
Very important.
For
For
business
models, the link.
you have to be very careful because company, they were having processes. Like in this company where we went in Greece, it was very much fun. I remember I went myself modeling the processes they were having to prune the trees which have the branches going to the electricity lines. So this kind of process. So you find a guy, finally after 1 week, you end up finding somebody who is speaking only Greek. I know Greek only from my early studies, so you can imagine how we were communicating, body communicating to model the business process of this guy. But my point is, you model the process as people who are doing things, okay? This is why yesterday I said it's very easy for me. I know probably something like 200 different types of models. And business process modeling is the easiest in the way she's describing for the moment, this activity like that. Because people tell you the story and immediately you can model. Afterward, you have a little bit of cleaning the stuff, but it's very easy to other kind of model. So my point is that these people are that most of the companies, they are still at that level. They don't reason about their processes, they just continue doing the same procedure. So now they have a model. For instance, this guy on the Rast did something very interesting, at least for me. He developed a program to analyze the logs of the way people were executing processes. And then they realized that the gap between the model and the execution of the model was terribly large. It's another way to show that at the moment there is total immaturity of people in organization about business processes. So they accept that they should model it, but they don't understand completely
Meaning they are not happy to see that they are realizing the things in a way that they are not.
Besides, it's the main mistake, the kind of thing. You enter in problems which are not at that level, normally shouldn't be solved at that level. It would be solved elsewhere. But I think this notion of, understanding your strategy and the impact of the strategy on business processing companies is very weak. Any company I go, I find people, top-level people, they can speak about the strategy very well. You go down to these people who are executing business processes, and you ask them what kind of strategy they have in mind. It's totally different from what the executive manager told you. So this is the life we have today. There is a big gap between.
Can you give us just a few minutes to explain to the audience
Yes.
the difference? Because it's very interesting. I mean, to see two different opinions about modeling is quite important. So, Judy, will you please explain?
I'm going to try. Todo el mundo yo más o menos lo que está ocurriendo. Justamente la idea es mostrar que cuando uno hace modelos de procesos, pues muchas veces uno se basa en lo que la gente hace y lo modela. Ese es el punto de vista que está acá. Pero cuando uno realmente quiere hacer una relación entre lo que la organización persigue y lo que la organización hace, pues hay que tomar en cuenta las dos cosas. Que es distinto de cuando uno trabaja con la ingeniería de requisitos. La ingeniería de requisitos que vimos ayer, que era orientada a los objetivos, pues va a permitir que uno luego defina cuál es el conjunto de actividades, en este caso, que se requieren para cumplir con esos objetivos. Entonces la discusión comenzó justamente porque los objetivos no estaban claros, los requerimientos que debería cumplir estas tareas no estaban. Entonces no se podía preguntar si era completa o no, porque no se sabía si es completa en términos de qué. ¿Okay? Pero como era un ejemplo, pues se suponía que era eso que estaba allí. Entonces, de las dos cosas que se sacan una es, siempre que uno quiere ver si algo está completo desde el punto de vista de cumplir objetivos y alcanzar para lo que fue hecho, pues hay que tener algo con que comparar, que son los objetivos, que son los requisitos. En este caso, también ocurre el problema de que las organizaciones nunca hacen esa relación. Entonces, cuando uno va a modelar las actividades, pues uno va y le pregunta a los de abajo qué hacen, entonces uno lo modela. Pero no necesariamente eso va a llevar a cumplir ni con las reglas ni con los objetivos de la organización. Pero esto, un poco añadiendo lo que ocurre, uno modela normalmente lo que la organización hace y después uno mira lo que debería hacer. Entonces hay una gran brecha entre esas dos cosas. Y entonces, ¿cómo vamos a hacer para saber qué es lo que realmente la organización debe hacer o va a hacer y moverlos entre los dos? Entonces, esto nos lleva del modelo del actual al modelo del futuro también, ¿no? Pero a veces el modelo del actual ni siquiera se sabe cuál es, ¿no? Eso nos ocurre mucho a nosotros como ingenieros de sistemas. Entonces, yo decía que la discusión es muy interesante porque muestra que no puede haber dos cosas distintas, ¿no? O sea, yo no puedo modelar objetivos y requisitos por un lado y los procesos por el otro. Es un poco la idea de esto.
¿Me permite agregar un poquito? Yo creo que también el problemita de la discusión surgió por cómo representar la reservación hotelera, ¿no? Que todo dependía de la posición de colega, es que todo depende del objetivo que tengas. Pues si el objetivo es satisfacer las reservaciones y tener clientes satisfechos, pues entonces tú no deberías tener una lista de espera, ¿no? Pero si tú estás modelando el proceso y no estás construyendo un sistema de información, entonces modelar el proceso tal como se da ahorita es perfectamente válido. O sea, tú modelas lo que tienes, ¿okay? Salgan los clientes satisfechos o no salgan satisfechos. Tú los modelas porque además vas a detectar problemas cuando modeles la situación actual. Y entonces a lo mejor las corriges en la situación futura. Yo creo que las dos posiciones son bien interesantes, ¿no? Porque es la posición del ingeniero requisito por un lado y la posición del modelador de negocio por otro lado. Entonces esas diferencias son muy interesantes. Y eso es la realidad. Eso es lo que se van a topar ustedes cuando vayan al campo de trabajo y tengan que modelar, ¿no? Depende del objetivo que persigan para modelar. Muy importante no olvidar eso.
Pero además agrego, ¿no?, que justamente el objetivo de la gestión del hotel es tener el hotel lleno, todas las habitaciones llenas, no importa cómo, pero a lo mejor el objetivo del cliente, que es el que va a estar satisfecho, es saber si tiene o no tiene. Entonces, cuando preguntaba, ¿usted se satisface estar en una lista de espera? Yo no, porque no me asegura nada. ¿Okay? Pero desde el punto de vista del gerente del hotel, sí, porque él sabe que si hay un cliente que le falla, yo voy a llamar a este y le voy a decir que venga. Entonces fíjense que modelar desde el punto de vista del gerente es distinto de modelar desde el punto de vista. Ahora, desde la estrategia del negocio, ¿qué buscan? Satisfacer al cliente o satisfacer sus objetivos financieros. ¿Y cuál es el peso? La negociación.
Yo quiero satisfacer al cliente only if you can satisfy also your financial.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know business which is not looking the business income.
The negotiation.
The proposal was different, but nevertheless
if because the hotel believe they are making business by loyalty, then the objective of satisfying the customer will become very important. And it will be part of the game, and probably they will enter in this, ¿cómo se dice en castellano? Waiting list.
La lista de espera.
La lista de espera. Entonces, pero si eso no value of the owner of the hotel. Okay, so we were about integration between processes. I don't ask any more questions.
Everybody's awake.
Yeah, will be the way.
Okay, thank you, Colette, for making your
I don't have voice, but
Okay, so I said here that it can be, in fact, find the best option to negotiate with the customer, but for the modeling purposes that I would like to show you, I choose a very simple option, which is the waiting list. Okay, my proposal is different. Why I determine the waiting list? Because somebody maybe will cancel. Okay, so there is a cancellation request. Customer which is a cancellation requester will ask the cancellation. It can be refused. It's 2 weeks before, otherwise it will not be accepted. So in this case, the cancellation request is rejected. And in the other case, the customer respected the policy of the company. So the cancellation is registered. The room availability is updated. Not available. Because we them for making other thing. Satisfy the waiting list. The customer is notified, telling them so there is no financial aspect, so it can be, everything is okay, and the cancellation is notified to somebody, which will have the responsibility of recover some penalties. So resale cancellation notification, select pending request to recover according to the strategy of the company. They can have the oldest one, the oldest ones, or the oldest waiting list requests. It can be, the strategy can be, I will try to find the smaller number of rooms for satisfying the biggest number of customers, or I will try to have the smaller number of customers in order to have the biggest number of rooms for every customer, so I will satisfy big customers. Situation, whatever, so I'm not going inside this activity, but this is a very important activity. The request status is, which is selected here according to the tactic, strategy, whatever you wish, is put in the status accepted. The room availability is again updated, and we will notify the customer. And here, my last feature. Yeah, not this one. This is the cancellation requested. So I realized that this responsibility, this set of activities is not in the right place. I take it and I put it with the previous process in order to complete my process. This is what I was asking for. Is my process complete? This means in every case that I can satisfy, I satisfy. So here I will satisfy maybe 1 week after I put it in the waiting list. Because another process, which is cancellation room reservation, will send me some new availabilities, and this process will do all these things that we saw just before and notify the customer, which is waiting since 1 week. So let us try to see that in an upper level, in a macro level, not in the detail. So my first process, which was called in the beginning with the goal make room reservation. It was a make immediate room reservation with the missing column, with the missing set of activities. In some cases, I go out with a reservation confirmation, but in some other cases, here I'm blocked. So I'm waiting. Don't see that. I'm waiting till a cancellation by a temporary level. Or I hope not. I don't hope to have cancellations, in fact, but I provided these possibilities to my customers. But if in this case there is a cancellation, I will use this new event, reservation cancellation, in order to satisfy my customer, which was in a waiting list. Now, the problem that I would like to highlight here is that in a lot of companies, people which are involved in these two processes, here these are two very closer processes. These are dealing with the same business object, which is a reservation. These are broader processes, okay? But because this is a simple example, suppose that these are two more distant processes. And there is nevertheless this flow of information which is necessary in order to allow to this process to continue its role for providing the final product of this process. In a lot of organizations, people which are involved in a given business process are concerned only by their business process. They don't necessarily see the link with the other parts of the organization. These people and this business process, if you imagine that the indicator of performance of this process is to count, in this case it's stupid in fact to count, but imagine that there are process A, process B, which with very two different objectives. So the aim of this cancelled room reservation process B is to count the number of objects provided per day or per month. They are concerned by making happy their customer. And often people here think that providing this information will take some time. They don't have that because their aim is to provide satisfaction to their direct customer. But in this case, in the present case, if this flow does not arrive in time, I will have another event, a temporal event, which will delay, cancel the waiting list, the request which is in the waiting list. If this arrives with 1 day of delay, or even 2 hours of delay, this will conduct the cancellation of the request in the waiting list, while somewhere in the organization you have the capability to satisfy the customer in the waiting list. So my purpose here is that more than the detail of the business process, the most important is to make the right contracts between business processes. In the macro level of representation, to understand the flow, the requirements in terms of data flow or material flow between business processes. And when this level is accepted by all process owners, then we can go inside the business process and make everything we wish inside the business process if it does not impact the other processes. But this contract, I call it contract because it's a kind of message sending to the object oriented. So this is a kind of contract between the way of working together of these two business processes. So afterwards I will go. 10 minutes. So we represented a lot of business processes in the way that we represented the as-is situation, 200, and then realized that we cannot think in this level and created the goal hierarchy. Okay. So a few words about a conceptual modeling framework for offering the rigor necessary for modeling well-defined business processes, but in the same time the flexibility and adaptability required for ill-defined business processes, and also the flexibility required for handling the variants of the well-defined business processes. And in the same time, providing concepts useful to represent the three views, the three dimensions that I previously listed: the intentional view, perspective, the intentional dimension related to teleological view, the purpose view, the why, the organizational and operational view, and IT support view. So in this work, I will go quickly here because there is an animation which is not useful. I don't have enough time anymore. So here the suggestion, the proposition, is to use the MAP model, which is provided by colleagues Roland, which is the intentional representation of a system, an organization, or a methodology, or whatever. And the suggestion here is to use this representation of a MAP model in order to represent the intentional view of the organization before going to the organizational and operational view of the organization, in terms of intentions and strategies, and finding some decision process, what I'm calling decision process terms, in order to help the business people to navigate in their business map using intentions that they would like to achieve and strategy or tactical they can make use to achieve these intentions. So for this, the MAP model provides some guidelines which are called intention selection strategy guideline and strategy selection guideline. So I cannot do this. They are not. And when this level, this intentional level, using strategies to be used or tacticals to be used for achieving business intentions, are used in several levels of refinement, it comes a level where I can represent the way of the organization will do the things in a well-defined way. This means that the actors will do some activities at this time following this order. But the new thing here with respect of complete role activity representation of the company is that I understand and I accept that the intentional view is very important, but I think also that we have to tell that in some place actors will realize the activities. I have to propose some applications which will support the activities of this person and whatever. And I need these two levels when all decision-oriented view of the company is represented in terms of business intentions and business strategies, and in several levels of refinement. When I consider when the business people are able to explain to me the way of business is going, is achieving this intention, the next business intention, using a business strategy, I should represent this business process chart using more classical, put everything, using a more classical business process representation, people doing things in some time, in some place, and whatever, using the consideration of who is doing what, where, when, which are used in the previous representation of business process. But here, my suggestion is to use this representation only at the level when we may represent one way of realizing a section of the map. You can send me some papers, or if you wish to read about perhaps some college papers. But my point here is that we need in some place to explain also who is doing things, in which order, etc., when we arrive at this level. And in this representation, we change the difference between a complete role activity representation of the company is that my business process chunks will be smaller. These will be local histories, and all decisional aspects will be represented in the map, which is a kind of orchestrator of several local histories. It's a way of representing in a declarative way the organizational knowledge, but the map provides a kind of visualization from my point of view of a declarative representation, which is, by definition, flexible, more flexible. So instead of framing, it's too much. Instead of framing, in the first time, don't see this colored and dotted lines, okay? This is a business process. This one with these lines. This is a big business process. Everything is said in an imperative way. Represented, like in a program, like in an imperative programming language. The way of using, the possibility of using an intentional level allows us to represent the decisional aspects of business processes before going in the organizational aspects of the business processes. And this means that in this two-layer representation, I will not have the big business process. I will have a smaller components of business process chunks that the map model will allow to orchestrate. and maybe few words. I have still 5 minutes, or I stop now? Okay. This is from a work that I did in 2008, a survey of flexibility requirements modeling related to business process and modeling artifacts. So here, the 3 dimensions that we already saw: operational, organizational, teleological. There are 6 modeling perspectives in the literature: intentional, functional, organizational, process, information, and operation. The 5 latest have been proposed by Mandaras and Isi. The intentional one has been added by our team and our work. Here are the papers and the references that I put. You have also several modeling formalisms in the literature, according to the purpose of your modeling business process, according to the reason for which you are doing business process, and also according to the nature of the business process. It is well defined or undefined redundancy. You should make. We can make use of several modeling formalisms in the literature. The most used is the activity-oriented, but I agree that this is not the most appropriate for a lot of situations. This is not appropriate. We have the product-oriented representation, which is less, which is a little bit more flexible in some way. It provides more possibilities to do things in the way that people are wishing to do them. In this situation, these are only the product states which are defined in the process, and the actors can do whatever they wish to do if they reach the product state, which should be reached at this stage of the process. So business objects are handling during the execution of the process, and their flow among the activities are more important than the activities process. You have decision intention-oriented representations, which are, of course, the most appropriate for every kind of business process, but added value is more particularly for knowledge-intensive business processes. And you have also conversation-oriented representations. It was really used in the United States in the middle of 90s because it was related to the workflow management system, which is called action workflow. The action workflow was making use of this modeling formalism, which is conversation oriented, and everything which is happening in the organization is viewed in terms of producer-consumer. It is based on the model, on the old model, which is called action acts. Action acts. I forgot the name of the original term. Okay. So the existing business process models, formalists in the literature, like UML, UPC, PML, PML, whatever BPML, are mainly based in activity-oriented and also product-oriented representation. Most of them mixed. For instance, in BPMN, in the same picture, we have the activity-oriented and the product-oriented view of business processes. And we argue that we need less detailed, more concise, more usage-oriented representations, and this was a work done by Saidani in order to have a role-orientation, role-oriented representation of business processes, in order to show the variability in terms of the, for instance, preferences of the actors, in terms of realizing the activities which are under their responsibility, or also taking into account the context of execution of business processes. For instance, in an hospital, in a normal time, people which are not doctors cannot do some activities, but in an emergency situation, they should do these activities that they should not do in a normal situation. This means that the business process representation should also take into account the environment of the business process and represented explicitly in a context environment representation of the business process instead of inserting it into the business process and representing just using the or conditions. Make separation between the environment of the business process and the internal process. And I think I will stop.
Any question?
Pregunta en español, ¿verdad?
Las traducimos también.
Sí. Selmin.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you in Spanish. Yo tengo dos preguntas. Una primera pregunta es, como los servicios están de moda, todo el mundo habla ahorita de servicio, de orientación a servicio. Una pregunta que quisiera hacerle es cómo ella ha considerado el concepto de servicio dentro de su propuesta de modelado de negocio. Y la segunda pregunta tiene que ver las relaciones que hay, el trabajo que ella tiene con TOGAF, que es el estándar hoy en día para la elaboración de arquitectura empresarial. Okay, the first question is about services. How do you consider services in your proposal? How can you model service as a business process? And what is the difference between modeling a service and modeling an operational process, for example? And the second question is about TOGAF. So I've seen the different labels. It reminds me of TOGAF. So I assume that there are a quite close relationship between your work and TOGAF.
With respect to service orientation, in a imperative representation of the business process, service is totally absent. There is one way of doing things, there are several ways of doing things, but there is only one way of representing the whole. In the last way of representing the intentional level and in the organizational and operational level, there is a possibility to include the service orientation. For instance, the small business process terms can help to represent the service orientation view of business processes. It seems to me.
Well,
We talk about the miss, no?
The
We have a model in the lab which is doing that. You should at least mention it.
well, we are actually working on that, describing services. And we think that services is a kind of process which has some particular characteristics. So the problem of representing is going deeper into the characteristics, just to establish the difference between a service and another kind of process. For example, in a service, you always have a customer. You have a customer. In a process, that's not always the truth. You may have a customer.
From my point of view, the
Sometimes
process is
one will be
necessarily a customer, is necessarily a product, and is necessarily an object of organization. And even in the situations where the process cannot be represented in terms of sequence of activities, the two parts remain: objective, customer, and the product of the product or service which should be solved by the process. A service can be a process, but a service can be also an activity in a process. A service can be also
part of the process.
I think the process can be seen as a service, but the process also can be constructed but as a collection of services. This means every activity and the process is constructed on the fly, finding the best service for realizing this activity, and this activity.
There is a very complete approach by Eric Dubois. Have you read about Eric Dubois? Eric Dubois is in the Luxembourg, the Tudor Center of Research.
Sorry about that.
Completely lost.
Well, can you give me the reference?
Yeah,
The name of the-
they are working completely at lab, but it's really quite elaborated. They have made this distinction between an atomic, but the assumption is that the service can be some part of a business process. And then they have been working on composition, distinction between atomic, non-atomic, and so on, and there's a number of rules for transformation and composition. It's quite complex. Everything which is made by this is complicated. And simplified, it will be good.
With respect to TOGAF, it seems to me TOGAF is more complete and kind of enterprise architecture represented.
All the levels, I think.
But
The
there are
three
more.
levels, the business level,
TOGAF
the
includes
application level, data level, and
And
also
TOGAF, the center, there's requirements, huh?
Sorry?
TOGAF, at the center, you have the requirements, they are driving the entire process. Here we have only layers, we don't have a process saying in which you should go through these models. More elaborate.
And about flexibility, TOGAF is flexible. The model
But at all, it's really users.
I don't think so.
I think the one
TOGAF is complex, very
is
complex.
the flexibility.
It's no an applying TOGAF. We have experience. We finished a project, 1-year project, in which we have to design the enterprise architecture for the tax office in Venezuela. And we partly use TOGAF. But what we found is that it's not easy to use. It's too complex, and it maybe takes applying exactly as it is. It may take about 2 years to get a plan and a strategical plan. And then imagine if you spend 2 years elaborating a strategic plan and then implementing the plan may take 4, 5, 6 years. So it's a lot of time. It's
Individual 6 years
So there must be a better way of doing that. Well, we are a little bit disappointed with using TOGAF.
It's too complex.
Too
I've
complex.
been involved with
Too many things.
SAP, of course, they want to spend level, which is good.
And the other one, the methods. And you find a lot of errors in applying methods. I guess that method has not been fully tested. Requires some rigor. Thank you. Next.
for EKD, for the market presentation.
No, they have a tool now, in the lab. It's a tool for maps.
They did it?
Yes.
It was planned, but
No, it's done.
it's done. It's an editor or it's an executor?
Basically, it is possible.
What about goals, the goals model
The
that you
map.
explained yesterday? Is there any tool for that? I guess it's not too difficult to
No, because it's more reasoning which is important. You need a tool to document, especially in cars, they have this objective, which is a professional tool that you can buy or you can try because it's very easy to get some view of the tool.
It's a project. This is a project.
Thank you very much.